So you want to set your goals for 2022 like a strategist. Well, you're in luck. I did my undergrad in business. I got my MBA from a school ranked on the Financial Times. I have a CIMA management accounting qualification. And in my last job, I was in charge of a strategy department for a company that had 535 million euros in EBITDA in the last full year that I was there. So I've been doing this a long time and I've got all the credentials. And here's what I would do if I were you. I'm Valerie Price. This is Millionaire Moxie, and we're here to help you in your small business or side hustle to be the most effective business person you can be. There are 3 things that I would do setting goals for the year. I'll give you some examples of things that I want to do for this year, and then I'll give you some pro tips for what to think about as you're going through and setting these goals. The 3 steps that I would take would be to look at my goal hierarchy, including my higher purpose. I would set my objectives and key results, or inputs and outputs. And then finally, I would make sure that I have systems and processes in place to support the delivery of those goals. So let's talk about the first one, the goal hierarchy. The most motivating position you can be in is if you're working toward a higher goal or purpose that's aligned with your own personal values. When we're looking at a goal hierarchy, what we want to say is you might notice that some of them are in service to others, and you can see that those things all fit neatly in each other like a set of Russian dolls, and that would be a goal hierarchy. Now, there's a difference between a goal and an objective. A goal is something that's kind of far in the future. It might be something that's harder for you to affect. An objective is something that is within your power, and it's something that is an action item for you to do. A very popular framework within the strategy field is objectives and key results, which came from Intel. And it is there to help you to set stretch goals, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Objectives and key results are different because the objectives are for you and key results are the outcomes that are associated with what you want to do, so that you know always the reason why you're doing a particular objective, but you're only focusing on the things that you can actually make some difference on. And then the third part of this is to set the systems and processes in place that help you to achieve those goals. And as James Clear famously said in his book, Atomic Habits, we do not rise to the level of our goals, but rather we fall to the level of our systems. So systems and processes, what are they and how are they different from goals? A process is something that happens the same way every time. And it's really good for being able to improve yourself because you have a baseline of comparison. An easy way to get to the systems and processes is to take a look at your longer term goals and objectives and say you have a yearly goal, taking the YouTube example, to have 100,000 subscribers on your channel. Then your quarterly goal might be for Q1, you want to get to 1,000, and then compound it from there. When you're taking that down and saying, okay, my objectives are then I'm going to film 100 videos in Q1. Every week, I'm going to have to publish 6 videos. And then what do I have to do every day to be able to publish 6 videos every week? It might be spend 2 hours researching and 3 hours filming, or spend 5 hours editing every Tuesday. So when you take it down to that level, you're able to start putting in place your daily habits and maybe time blocking some time into your schedule so that you know what you need to do when you wake up in the morning. And then you can be less focused on whether or not you've hit that magic number of subscribers and more focused on the things that you can do to make that difference. And if you've been achieving your objectives at that level of the system level, your daily habit level, Then you can say, well, if this is not working to achieve my key result, what do I need to tweak within this? Or how can I improve what I've been doing to get to that next level? Now, this is a great way to get to one of our next steps, which is setting the milestones that we aim to achieve on the journey to the longer term goal. Milestones are really important because we need to set some wins for ourselves in order to keep up the motivation. Let's say another one of your marketing efforts is to publish a website and have a certain number of visitors to that website. You might say, well, I'm going to publish 10 articles. You probably want to know that those 10 articles are things that people are actually interested in reading before you spend a whole bunch of time publishing them and shooting in the dark. So, knowing that it's not just about publishing 10 articles, that's not actually your key result or your goal, but it's actually about generating visitors, lets us do a review in the process. A big tip here is to think about when you're setting up these milestones, some of the cognitive biases or decision-making heuristics that we have when we're actually setting out goals for ourselves. These are shortcuts that our brain makes that sometimes stand in the way of us being able to achieve something, whereas other times help us to process more information than we otherwise would be able to. The particular decision-making heuristic here is called hyperbolic discounting. It's also known as present bias. An example of this is to say a short-term goal, even though it's worth less, might be more attractive to us than a longer-term goal. So if you know that you're always falling for something like an immediate benefit, for example, staying in bed in the morning versus getting up and actually getting to work on your side hustle, then set yourself up for I'll take a nap later if I'm tired versus I'll do the task later. And then you have that reverse of the script so that you put the hyperbolic discounting on the thing that you are less likely to want to do to achieve your goals. The second thing that I would consider an important aspect of setting goals from a strategic point of view is stretch targets. Most companies will say that they are setting stretch targets for their employees, and I would recommend to a lot of people to set stretch targets for yourself. But a lot of people is not everybody. I think anybody who has a business background who has heard of the SMART goals, so that's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. The realistic one is something I want to focus on a little bit here. One is making something too easy for yourself, and so you don't get quite as far as you could have otherwise. And this is where stretch goals comes in place, where you want to be able to stretch but not make the goal unrealistic. There is an exception to setting stretch goals, though. You should only set stretch goals if you're coming on the back of a success and you have that kind of boost in your confidence, your attitude, and your strategic flexibility that comes from that recent success. And if you have flexibility in your resources, that can be time or money. If you've just had a year where you didn't get as far as you wanted to, or you know that you're going to be really pressured with how you spend your time, then you might just want to make those goals a little bit more achievable and set up more small wins along the way so that you get that momentum from the progress and feel like you've actually done something good for yourself so that you're building that feeling of coming off of the back of success. You can always reassess your goals halfway through the year instead of setting them for a year long to try to fit that quick win period in there. One of the reasons that people decide to set stretch targets in the first place is because you should expect to be on a learning curve. So just because you've set a quarter of more realistic goals or half of a year of more realistic goals doesn't mean that you should not do any stretch targets at all. Time blocking is something that we mentioned before. Time blocking is really useful for setting up those daily habits. Because our tasks often vary from day to day and we are unlikely to have to do the same thing all the time, it can be hard to actually set up a habit. When you're going through your goal hierarchy and looking at objectives, try to group them into similar groups. If I always have to be editing, then I might do 1 or 2 time blocks that are just for editing, where I can have focus time and make sure I'm away from distraction. Michael Porter, who's a living legend in the strategy world, famously wrote, "The essence of strategy is choosing what not to do." So when you're writing down your 1 to 3 things that you need to do in that day and setting out your time blocks, make sure that you're thinking about what you do not need to do. There are 5 specific levers that people can pull in a strategy context to get ahead of the competition, which is what strategy is all about. 4 of them are about resource allocation. 1 is actually dedicating more resources to the things that matter than your competitors do, and therefore coming out ahead. And the other one is being able to pivot quickly if you haven't done that in the first place. So when we're looking at our systems and processes and setting in review periods for ourselves, make sure you're thinking about what you need to stop, start, and continue within that review period in order to reallocate your time, your energy, your money to the things that are really making a difference in your business. That dynamic resource reallocation is one of the things that is the most important things in strategy. Other things are improving productivity, which is, I would say, something to do with resource allocation because you're freeing up some resources for yourself, and differentiation improvement. So actually, again, it's back to that doing things that matter and making sure you're just that little bit different than your competition. Back to what Michael Porter says, the essence is choosing what not to do. That way you can focus your time on what you should be doing and your resources on the things that really make a difference. When we're talking about SMART goals, which we've already gone through the specificity of it, get very specific. One of the things that makes the biggest difference to people's success is to write down not only specifically what you want to do, but where and when you want to do it. This improves the chances of success by up to 60% for people. Document the risks there are to your plan. So an easy way to do this is to say, what would the newspaper headline say in the next quarter or at the end of the year when I've achieved this result? Let's say the newspaper headline says, I didn't achieve it. Why didn't I achieve it? And when you put yourself in that future state, you're more able to imagine the risks to your ability to actually execute on your plan. From a risk management standpoint, the next step you want to take is actually to develop contingency plans. So risks are mitigated with contingency plans or contingency budgets. Those things are supposed to reduce the level of the risk in your ability to achieve your plan. And lastly, design reinforcements into your plan. A reinforcement is just an incentive that helps you to get back on track or to stay on track if you're doing it. Some reinforcements could be small wins. Other things would be treating yourself after you've done 40 minutes of work to 10 minutes of a YouTube video, for example. Other reinforcements might be punishments. Some of the strongest reinforcements are accountability to other people. Did you know that joining an accountability group makes you 95% more likely to achieve your goals? So work with other people, whether it's a business partner, a spouse, a friend, or even just finding a group of people who have a similar goal as you. Set up a weekly meeting and go through whether or not you achieved what you set out to achieve and why or why not you didn't. Practice focus through energy allocation and identify times to step back and breathe. Good luck with your goals. If you like this video, give us a like and subscribe to the channel. And feel free to leave comments below for anything that you do to achieve your goals. And let us know what you're working on. Maybe we can help.